Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Back to School Kickoff webinar. In today's webinar, we're going to be talking about the latest product updates to support you and your district during back to school. Before we get started, I just want to share a few housekeeping items. First and foremost, please ask us anything. You can use the Zoom console at the bottom of your screen to ask questions, share your thoughts, and at the end, we'll leave time for Q&A. Second, stay connected. Please feel free to tweet at Clever using the hashtag EdTech. And last but not least, this session is being recorded, so we will be sharing it with all of you after the webinar is over. Now to introduce ourselves. I think I know quite a few of you on this webinar actually, but my name is Megan Kier and I am a Partner Success Manager at Clever. I started at Clever in 2014. If we are measuring time in and back to schools, as I know many of you do now, this will be my 7th back to school with Clever. And I started on our support team and now work with a lot of you as a success manager. And I will let Emily introduce herself.
I'm Emily, the product manager for our rostering product. So as I was just saying, anything related to connecting with your districts, with sharing data, those all fall under my team's umbrella. I've been at Clever for pretty much as long as Megan has been. We started on the same team, and I've worked with a few of you before when I was a partner engineer. So I'm really excited to share what we've been working on this year.
Perfect, thank you. Welcome back, everyone. First of all, I see quite a few repeat attendees from our Q1 and Q2 product talks, which we love to see. This webinar is now the 3rd in our new series of quarterly product talks, where we've been sharing the latest developments with Clever's product roadmap. We know that it's very important for our partners to know about changes in advance of their district customers, and we hope that these quarterly product talks will provide you with helpful updates so that you feel set up for success when you're working with districts. Today, we really want to focus on ways that we're updating our platform to meet the unique challenges of this back to school to make sure that learning can happen from anywhere. Whether learning takes place in the classroom, remotely, or more likely both, we want to ensure that school districts are feeling ready with Clever. At the end of the day, success is really measured by the positive impact that we see in our school communities. I thought this quote really highlighted what we're trying to achieve. Whitney Anderson says, "The Clever portal has been vital during this time. It's been great for setting up a one-stop shop for all digital resources and links to websites students can use. We're so happy that Clever has made it easier for schools to transition to remote learning in this difficult time." Quite a few of you have asked what we're hearing from districts going into back to school, and we wanted to highlight 3 key themes that we know district leaders are focusing on, which have driven a lot of our product decision-making this year. First, enabling access for the entire school community, which has now grown to include increasingly pivotal audiences like families and school technology leaders. Second, expanding insight into digital learning engagement. And third, supporting remote resiliency so that students will be as ready as possible for learning at home, school, or both. Now I want to give you a quick recap of Clever's product releases in 2020 thus far. As many of you know, this has shifted quite a bit over the past few months as we've worked to support the evolving EdTech ecosystem. I'm going to explain how Clever has addressed each of the 3 themes I just mentioned, and then we'll dive into details about each of the features that you see highlighted here. First, we tackled enabling access for an entire school community by addressing a couple new audiences, school tech leads and families. In launching additional school leader tools, we're empowering a key user, the EdTech coach or school technology leader. We also focused on building out our family portal in order to engage families, who have of course had an increasingly pivotal role in supporting student learning over the past few months. Second, we're giving teachers better insight and visibility into digital learning engagement through improved classroom analytics and better messaging functionality. And last but not least, in an effort to better support remote resiliency, we released our rollout toolkit and enabled wider access of Clever Academy. Now let's take a closer look at the new features that enable access for the entire school community, specifically school technology leads and families. School technology leaders are usually the tech forward individuals at schools. This may be an official role or it may be an enthusiastic teacher. Either way, this person is generally responsible for helping teachers adopt and discover new edtech tools. They typically provide training and help teachers integrate edtech resources into their curriculum. With the new tools provided by Clever, school technology leaders will have the ability to demo teacher and student accounts for teachers, troubleshoot with our data browser and one-time teacher impersonation, and recommend EdTech resources in the Clever library. If you are curious, individuals can be given a school tech lead access role in Clever by their district admin, school admin, or staff. I want to provide a little more detail about the demo accounts, since I know quite a few of you will have questions, specifically how they work and what a school tech lead, or what we call an STL, sees when they use this feature. Right now, the demo accounts are designed for STLs to view the Clever portal as a demo teacher or student. This means they will see any applications that have been rostered by the district. One important call out is that right now, STLs will not be able to log into your program via demo accounts, which we will very clearly indicate in the portal. In the future, we see the ability to SSO into your application as a teacher or student demo account as a really compelling way to conduct trainings. And we do want to work with you to make this an option. So later this fall, you will have the option to opt into enabling access to your app through demo accounts on a district by district basis. Not going to dive too much into that today, but more coming soon. For the time being, in order for your application's tile to appear in the demo account portal, you will see a new school in your dashboard called Demoville Elementary. Please note that no action is required with regard to provisioning accounts for this school, and you will of course not be billed for any Demoville Elementary data. Next audience we focused on is families. One of the biggest shifts that Clever made in our roadmap during school closures was really accelerating our timeline for engaging families. District admins can now invite families to set up their own Clever portal. And once a family portal is set up, families can see links and announcements that are shared by the district or help their child log into their own Clever portal. If you were curious as to how widely adopted our family portal has been thus far, or what we're projecting for back to school, right now we have about 60 to 70 districts who have set up the family portal, and we're projecting around 800 will this summer. With regards to what types of engagement we've seen, district admins have been thrilled to have this option. We've seen the most engagement with families of elementary school students, which is not super surprising when you think about who would need help potentially logging in. We have around 20,000 families that have created accounts and have found that it's mostly for the purpose of helping their students get access. Unsurprisingly, we've also seen that folks with more resources available from their district tend to have higher engagement with the family portal. An update on the family portal that I'm thrilled to announce to all of you today is that we're now offering a way for our application partners to connect with families. You will have the ability to share resources with families whose districts have set up your application. Resources that we would recommend surfacing should either give families a sense of why your application is a helpful tool or demonstrate how families can help students with your program. The question that I know a lot of you are now likely asking is, how do I set this up? And the answer is that in the short term, please reach out to your success manager or Clever support to add resources to family portals for back to school. By the fall, we are hoping to allow you to add and edit your own content self-serve. So please consider this my first official plug for attending our Q4 product webinar. Next up, let's talk through creating digital classrooms that teachers love with better insights and visibility into digital learning engagement. The first product that we built to better support insight into digital learning engagement was Classroom Analytics. As schools transitioned to remote learning earlier this spring, teachers asked us for help understanding which of their students were logging in and to which applications. We've seen teachers use Classroom Analytics as a tool for tracking attendance or just for providing better accountability. An example would be that if a teacher assigns an activity in your application, they can now check which of their students have accessed your app. They can also check which of their students are logged into Clever in real time. Another feature that we built out was adding on to the announcements functionality that we released earlier this year, which we're calling messaging. Earlier this year, in response to school closures, we launched announcements, which gave teachers the ability to broadcast messages to their classes via the Clever portal. What we heard from teachers is that while this was super helpful, they really wanted the ability to communicate directly with individual students through Clever. Now, via messages, teachers can send and receive messages with individual students and even families if they have a family portal. Classroom analytics and messages are two key tools that we hope will set teachers up for success this back to school, no matter where teaching takes place. Whether learning remote or in the classroom, everyone can now stay connected through their Clever portal. All right, next topic. In our efforts to support remote resiliency, these next features are designed to enable fast and friendly implementations of Clever for districts, which I know is a crowd pleaser among this audience in particular. One feature that I know we've talked through on past webinars that a lot of you are very excited about is our rollout toolkit. The rollout toolkit is an in-product guide which walks districts through rolling out the Clever portal in their schools. If you're curious as to what is included in the rollout toolkit, we provide instructions on how to customize the Clever portal. There are email templates they can use to instruct their staff on how to log in. And we have customizable training decks that they can use during professional development weeks. If you're interested in learning more about the rollout toolkit, we actually have a Clever Academy course dedicated to this topic, which I would definitely recommend checking out if you were curious. Conveniently, this is a great time for me to remind you that Clever Academy is now available to our application partners. Clever Academy, if you are not aware, is a series of free self-paced professional development courses for districts, leaders, teachers, and now our application partners. You're welcome to point your district customers to these courses if they're looking for a refresher on Clever, or please check out the courses yourself. I know that they've been super valuable for anyone who's curious about what district admins are seeing. I would also recommend checking out our YouTube channel. We have quite a few quick start videos there from Clever Academy that are great short tutorials on key features that teachers are using. And that is sort of a wrap on the first part of this. Once our initial school closure pivot settled down, we were able to refocus our attention on one of our main objectives, which is, of course, always making onboarding as fast and easy as possible. And to that end, I will hand this off to Emily to talk through this next set of features, which are aimed at streamlining the onboarding process for you and your districts this back to school.
Great, thanks, Megan. I'm so excited to talk about the new tools we're bringing you this back to school. But before we dive into Custom Setup Wizard, safety thresholds, and smarter data sharing, I first want to address the fact that we pushed our data greenlight release to back to school 2021. I know many of you are really excited for this feature, and I wanted to apologize again for the change in plans. In reprioritizing our roadmap to support school closures, we were not able to release it as planned. And this is still very front of mind for our team and something we're excited to revisit for Back to School 2021. So first, I want to remind you guys of a feature we mentioned in our last quarterly webinar, the Custom Setup Wizard, which is currently live in your dashboard. We've updated the district connection process so that when a district is setting up your application for the first time, we'll coach them through 3 steps: sharing data, resolving data warnings, and any custom setup instructions for your specific program. And you can customize your district setup guide under the Settings tab in your dashboard, which we're going to take a look at now. So here is the brand new district setup tab where you can view and edit all of the new settings we've added this year. This is also where you can customize your application setup instructions. So when you customize your instructions, in the final step of the setup guide, districts will be able to see any message that you include here. And by putting app instructions into the Clever dashboard as well, we're trying to proactively push districts through the full setup flow and unify the setup experience between our system and yours so students can log in on day one. So this is just to highlight the experience a district administrator will have when they're walking through the custom setup wizard. So first, they'll choose to share based on recommendations you've made or by district, school, or rules. Also new this year, districts can choose to copy sharing settings they're using for an existing application and apply those settings to a new app connection. And so that's super exciting and hopefully very useful for those of you who have multiple apps on Clever. Once data is shared, we'll flag any potential data issues for them. And then finally, they'll view your instructions that you set up in your dashboard. As a quick reminder, on that first screen where they're viewing recommendations, you can set your global sharing recommendations in the same tab of your settings in your dashboard as you would your custom instructions. As for the second part of this flow, if you have any questions about data validation, please reach out to the Clever support team or your success manager who can help you review the data errors and warnings that might be set for this back to school. I want to share this quote from Gabrielle at Renaissance. They've been early adopters of the custom setup wizard. And Gabrielle said, after a district admin finalizes their setup in Clever, they need to complete a few steps within Renaissance before we provision accounts. We included those specific instructions in our setup guide, and it's been instrumental in helping districts get connected with minimal intervention from our team. This is a really great way to use custom setup instructions, and I'm so glad it's been helpful. I'm looking forward to seeing all the ways we can streamline the connection experience this back to school. Just a couple tips before I move on. Right now, customizing the instructions doesn't support screenshots, but it does allow for linking out of the Clever dashboard. So if the visual element is really important to your setup, we recommend linking to documentation that includes screenshots. Instructions are not the only things that you can use this customization for. If your team would like to manage district expectations about wait times or send any other messages, this is really great for that use case. And finally, there's only one setup guide per app. So if there are particular districts that have a more complicated setup or need more handholding, you can encourage them to skip that last step and work with your team directly. Awesome. Moving on to our next feature, safety thresholds, which is also live. This feature will prevent major changes in district data from being reflected in our API, your dashboard, and in the Clever portal until someone from your team has reviewed and approved those changes. So this means that if a district changes their sharing or syncs data in a way that would cause a lot of updates or deletions on your side, you can confirm with the district whether those changes are intentional and make sure you're on the same page about what will change in the application before anything happens. Turning on this feature does involve training your team to understand and, more importantly, monitor for safety thresholds. So if this seems like a good fit for your application, I encourage you to go check it out in your settings. We have some links to documentation for what that entails, so you can learn more about it. Okay, I'm so excited about this. If you were here at our last webinar, then you know this is the thing that I'm most pumped for this back to school. Smarter data sharing is fully live. So in our last webinar, we just released the first part of Smarter Data Sharing, which allows you to make general sharing recommendations to all of your districts. And I'm pleased to say that now you can make sharing recommendations to any district you're connected to. And those recommendations can be super granular. You can easily recommend sharing to a district and allow their team to review the request and accept it with just one click, avoiding complicated troubleshooting. So as you can see in this example, you can get down to the section level, to the specific student level for your recommendations for a particular district. No matter how complex the sharing request, it becomes a one-click step for districts, and a much quicker resolution for your team. So you can make recommendations for them to share the entire district, of course, or specific schools that you choose, or as you can see here, specific sections, specific students, specific users. Also, you can send these recommendations at any time, even if the district is already sharing data with you. So this is going to be a really great tool for getting districts set up for the first time and getting their sharing set up correctly, or even as you need to adjust throughout the year, potentially adding more data that will hopefully make it easier for your team to have this conversation with districts. But if you have general guidelines for all districts, remember that you can set your global recommendation for sharing in the dashboard, and that will make sure that every district gets the same base level recommendations, which is great if you cover specific subjects or specific grade levels. And you can use this to recommend, of course, that they share the entire district or specific schools. But that's at the global level is in the settings page in your dashboard, and the district specific settings will be on the district page in your dashboard as well. Oh, so here's what the district administrator side experience looks like. So when you save your sharing recommendations, we'll send an email to the district team that will send them to this page, your application profile, where they can view and accept or decline the sharing recommendation. And I do want to highlight again, you can do this at any time, so you can suggest rule changes throughout the year. However, you can only have one sharing request active per district at a time to avoid, miscommunications. So if you need to make any changes, go ahead and delete the existing request and send a new one. So that about wraps up our detailed overview of new features. I'm so excited to see how this will impact this back to school, and I'm going to hand it over to Megan to talk more about what this back to school is going to look like.
Thanks, Emily, who I can now hear because it turns out that was an issue with my Zoom settings and not your audio. So sorry about that. Awesome. I hope that everyone is as delighted with these updates as I am. I know that a lot of you have been asking for these things for a while, and we are just thrilled that we are able to deliver on them this year. We thought that you might be particularly overwhelmed with back to school preparations at the moment, so we put together a few key resources for you to help prepare for the next few months. I'm going to walk you through what we have gathered, which is our back to school checklist, information about how to access our training resources, and then how to sign up for a new program that we're hosting this year called Office Hours. Conveniently, all of these resources are now in one place, and you can find them in our back to school app resource hub. That's clever.com/app-BTS. I would highly encourage everyone to visit this page, bookmark it, share it with your teams. We will also be sending the link out with this webinar recording, but it really takes all of the resources we put together for you and put them in one place so that you can reference them quickly. All right, back by popular demand, our back to school checklist walks you through how to make sure that your team is very ready for back to school with Clever. We have broken the categories on this checklist into 4 sections. Each of them has a quick list of tasks to complete. So I'll just walk you through what the 4 sections are and then would encourage you to review it with your teams over the next couple months. First, we have housekeeping. This section focuses on getting your Clever dashboard set up for back to school. It's where we'll ensure that you're taking advantage of the amazing new features that we just reviewed, including customizing your setup guide, setting recommended sharing rules, and activating safety thresholds. Next, we have organizational alignment. That section walks you through recommendations to ensure that your teams are aligned on how to use Clever to connect with districts during back to school. It includes everything from the invitation process to how to contact Clever support. Third, we have the manage onboarding category. The steps outlined here provide guidance on how to develop your onboarding strategy with Clever to forecast and prepare for implementation volume from both new and returning districts. Last, we have user engagement. The action items listed here provide you with Clever's resources to drive engagement of your application through the Clever portal and highlight tools that you can utilize to track usage throughout the year. I would highly recommend running through the back to school checklist. It's a pretty comprehensive list of best practices in preparing your team for back to school, and I know that people have found it very valuable in the past. Now let's take a closer look at some of the user education and training resources that we've made available to you. Yeah, our back to school app resource hub does have quite a few training resources that I would recommend checking out. A quick overview is that you can find out more about where a district is in their SSO journey to better understand how to best support them during back to school. We have a teacher training guide that to include in any teacher professional development that your team may run. There are a couple videos for you to learn more about both what a district's journey is like on a district's onboarding journey is like on Clever and their experience preparing for back to school. And then quick access, of course, to Clever Academy. So a little bit more on what we mean by a district's SSO journey. We released a better visibility into a district's current and predicted SSO usage last back to school, and just wanted to remind you that that information is still available and that it's now been updated for the 2020-2021 school year. We know that it's super helpful for you to understand how familiar teachers may be within a district when rolling out the Clever portal. From within your Clever dashboard, if you click on a district's profile page and then scroll down, there's a section called Clever SSO usage. You'll see these two key indicators there. One of them tells you whether a district had significant, moderate, or little to no usage of the Clever portal in the 2019-2020 school year. And the other is whether we predict that the district will be using the Clever portal for the 2020-2021 school year. Another tool under this section, which I would love for you to utilize, is our teacher training guide. These are customizable slide templates that you can use to supplement your existing trainings. The guide includes a quick overview of Clever, how to log into Clever with the district's unique URL, how to access and favorite your application, some troubleshooting tips, and of course, information about Clever Academy. You can also find this in the Back to School app resource hub. A couple videos that I would recommend checking out, which you can also find in the hub, include a district's back to school journey and new district onboarding strategies. I think those titles are pretty self-explanatory, but it's great content and definitely check them out. I would also encourage you to see Clever Academy if that has not been made clear by the fact that I have probably mentioned it 10 times now, but please share it with your teams. I know that partners have found understanding a district's experience super valuable, and I hope that you take advantage of it. One last thing that we wanted to plug for you is that we'll be hosting office hours each week through the month of August this year. This is primarily for partners without a dedicated success manager. So if you do have a success manager, please feel free to reach out to them directly to talk through back to school planning. If not, you can sign up for a time slot using the sign up link that you will find in our resource hub. And that is a wrap on the first part. As always, it is our goal to ensure that you are informed about new product updates and changes so that you're set up for success. We will be sharing regular updates through our normal channels. So this quarterly product webinar, our monthly newsletter, and in product announcements. And with that, let's take a look at your questions. We should have time to get through most of them. If we don't answer your question live, fear not, our team will follow up with you directly.
All right, Megan, it looks like we already have a couple questions coming in. So first one, how do I add resources that will be shared with parents in the family portal?
Great question. In the short term, please reach out to your success manager or Clever support. By the fall, we are hoping to allow you to add and edit your own content self-serve. So more on that coming soon.
Great. Related question, how can I see which districts are using the family portal?
Loving the emceeing here, Emily. You should right now contact your success manager or Clever support to request this list if it would be helpful. Unfortunately, it is not available self-serve, but as this product continues to grow, we'll assess whether or not that seems like something that would be helpful for our partners.
Great. A question about school tech leads. How do I see which districts have school tech leads and who they are?
Very related to the last question, actually. So school tech leads are a type of staff, or what some of you may call school admin roles. So you'll see them come through as staff or school admins, which are two terms that we use interchangeably. Right now, whether it's the person is a school tech lead is not visible to partners, but I think as we better understand the partnership between apps and this role type, we'll assess whether it makes sense to surface them to you also.
All right. Kind of related, with the demo feature for school tech leads, can they access my app in the demo account?
I love that question. Right now, the demo accounts are intended just for STLs to demo Clever. It's not for facilitating curriculum training, but we do see that as the future of this product. So keep an eye out for more information soon. We would love to collaborate with you on this. So if you are interested in that, please feel free to reach out to your success manager or Clever support.
Great. Let's see. Is district data still paused over the summer? Oh, I'll take this one. So by default, we pause the data for districts on June 22nd, and it should start again around, we stagger them a little bit from August 1st through the rest of that week. So that would be what we've sort of the default for all districts. Of course, districts can change those dates or, unpause at any time. Let's see here. How do I sign up for office hours? I wonder if, Christina, do you want to take this one?
Yes. So as we've said before, we'll be sharing a link to the resource hub where you'll find how to sign up for office hours. And again, this is only for application partners without a dedicated success manager. If you're unsure if you have a dedicated success manager, that means that you don't have one, most likely. And if we've met, I'm Christina, I'm your program manager. So if you don't have a success manager and you've met me or we haven't met yet, you are definitely eligible to sign up for office hours.
Great, thanks, Christina. Megan, I think this is a good one for you. Who's the best person on my team to review the back to school checklist?
Another good question. I think that depends on who at your company is the most familiar with Clever, actually. I find that this person's generally either a support or implementation lead, potentially the team manager. There are also quite a few product managers I know on this call who are more than qualified.
Great. Is Clever thinking of creating Clever Academy courses to train applications on the app experience? Ooh, this is a great question. Yes, and especially if more of our partners would like us to. Let's see here. How is whether a district is using the Clever portal for 2020 to 2021 calculated? Megan, do you know this one?
Yeah, I can take that. We use several factors. One of them primarily being that at the end of each school year, we ask districts if they're planning to use Clever for the next school year. And then there's a couple other calculations that go into it as well, primarily around how they used the portal last year.
Awesome. Will this presentation be available as a recording? Yes. And we should, I think, also be adding it to the app resource hub. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, we'll be emailing it to anyone who attended the webinar or registered for the webinar as well.
Also, strong plug for the App Resource Hub. It looks amazing and will be super useful. Interesting question. Can we contribute to the Clever Academy? Seems like unsure. We know who reached out though. So we'll reach out to you and see what you'd be interested in. A couple questions about sharing maybe. Oh, do we have time, Megan?
I think we have time. I can start reading through some of the other questions also. So I see one that says, did we answer this? Can app partners see any analytics related to our app that are shown to a district? For example, do we have access to active time with our app through Clever? And I can answer that. Analytics on the app dashboard show usage by scoped users, number of unique users, and total logins. It does not show active time with your application. And then Emily, I think this is another good one for you, which is, are teachers able to send a group message to a whole class at once via Clever?
So teachers are able to communicate to an entire class through announcements. So messages are between individual students and teachers. So announcements for a whole class, messages for individual users.
Here's another good one for Emily, which is, will app partners have access to data for recommending district-specific sharing rules, even if they have shared that data with, have shared that data with us yet? For example, if the district only shared science with us, would we have access to their social studies classes in order to recommend specific classes to share?
Yeah, this is a great question. The answer is kind of. So you can make recommendations based on anything that's in our schema. So you could definitely add a rule that shares classes with an additional subject like social studies or another subject that those classes fall under. However, you won't be able to see the specific classes until the district has chosen to share that data with you. For security reasons, the district always has to approve any of the data that you can see. The other thing is that it's possible to set rules that don't share any data. So if you added that additional subject, but there were no actual classes that had that subject within their Clever data, then you wouldn't get anything in, that the rule would return nothing. So you just get the data you already had. So we recommend always, double checking with districts if a rule doesn't return any data, or you want to check in with them and see what rule would capture that data beforehand, so that when you send that rule through, everyone understands what's changing.
I have another similar question for you, actually, Emily. If global sharing recommendations are set up from our app side, do we then skip all specifics in the invitation or still customize it based on the actual purchase?
Yeah, awesome. And I see kind of a related question in the chat. So if you've set a global sharing recommendation, you can definitely also make specific recommendations either on the invite before the district is connected, or once they're connected through the district specific sharing requests that we showed earlier today. So if you do and the district is still going through the setup wizard on their side, in the area where we show them your recommendation, if you added a recommendation on the invite, we'll replace your global sharing recommendation with the recommendation on the invite. So the district-specific recommendations will always be shown before the global ones.
This is a similar question for you, Emily, on the custom setup wizard instead of the sharing recommendations, but will we be able to use the custom setup wizard to share instructions that are unique to a district?
So also kind of, so, oh, sorry, I think I misread this question. So the custom setup instructions that you can add to, so that a district sees it while they're going through the setup process, we don't recommend using that for instructions that are unique to a district, because that's a global setting for all of your districts. So if there are specific districts that need different instructions, we recommend working with those districts directly.
I have a question here that I can answer, which is, in Clever, how can we see when a district sync is scheduled to unpause? That information is listed on the district's profile, and it's also in the later versions of the API. So, and Emily confirmed, but if you're on version 2.1 or later, then you'll be able to access that information via the API.
That's correct.
Another question for Emily. As an application partner, will you be adding more user roles?
Ooh, interesting question. This is definitely something I'm interested in hearing more about, so I may reach out to you directly. I'm spending a lot of time thinking about user roles right now.
Sorry, all of these are for you, Emily. I'm excited about the product updates. Clever, with regards to Clever messaging and announcements, do these only go to devices where there's a Clever app? What if your app uses Clever for login, but a district doesn't have the Clever app on their device? So I think that these are the messages are surfaced in the Clever portal. So as long as they're accessing the Clever portal, they'll be able to see it regardless of whether or not they're logging in with like an iOS app or just on their desktop. I think that answers the question, but if not, please feel free to chat us and we can double click on that. Just to give Emily a break, I can what response times can we expect from Clever support during back to school? They have a 4-hour SLA, so you'll hear back from someone within 4 hours every time, and are available by phone as well for you and district administrators between the hours of 7 a.m. And 7 p.m. Pacific. Where can I find the teacher training guide that was referenced? Is this intended for vendors to use to assist teachers with accessing Clever and finding their app to log in? Yes, I love this. You can find it on the district's profile page in their dashboard. So if you click on the profile and scroll down to SSO settings, it's linked there. And then a copy is also available in the app resource hub. All right, for Emily, will you be adding more safety thresholds, i.e. when a new school is added or deleted? And then they have a couple specific examples, but I think that's the broader question.
Yeah, this is a great question. The answer is we're open to it. This is obviously the first back to school where safety thresholds will be live. So would love any and all feedback on how the thresholds we have set are working for you, and we can adjust or consider changing them if we're finding that our defaults aren't working.
Perfect. And then one last question for Emily. We would like to know if you plan to include data related to school activities and student registrations to school activities, e.g. football, soccer, school band, etc.
I think this is a bit of a new request, so I'd love to follow up with you and learn more about this particular use case and then figure out where it fits on our roadmap.
Perfect. All right. I think that might be a wrap for our questions. If your question wasn't answered, don't worry, we have all of this documented and we'll be following up with you directly. Again, we'll also send out a recording of this webinar and a link to the Back to School app resource hub to all webinar registrants. So keep an eye out for that. And of course, please feel free to share it with your colleagues. Thank you so much for attending. We hope that you enjoyed learning about all of our Q3 product updates. It's always a pleasure speaking with all of you, and I am very excited to head into this back to school with all of you.